Was he mean to you? He asked. No. Was he petty with you? No. Did he do all he could for you? Yes. Then what was wrong with him? I felt a bit ludicrous being cross-examined by Don Juan. What are you doing all this for? I said. We were supposed to be talking about plants. When you get angry, you always feel self-righteous, don't you? He said, and blinked like a bird. Let's not talk about my father, I said, feigning a happy mood. Let's talk about plants. No, let's talk about your father, he insisted. That is the place to begin today. If you think you were so much stronger than he, why didn't you go swimming at 6 a.m. in his place? I told him I couldn't believe that he was seriously asking me that. I had always thought that swimming at 6 a.m. was my father's business, not mine. It was also your business from the moment you accepted his idea, Don Juan snapped. I said that I had never accepted it, that I had always known my father was not truthful to himself. Don Juan asked me matter-of-factly why I had not voiced my opinions at the time. You don't tell your father things like that, I said as a weak explanation. Why not? That was not done in my house, that's all. You've done much worse things in your house, he declared, like a judge from the bench. The only thing you never did was shine your spirit. There was such a devastating force in his words that they echoed in my mind. He brought all my defences down. I took refuge by writing in my notes. I tried a last feeble explanation and said that all my life I had encountered people of my father's kind who had hooked me somehow into their schemes, and as a rule I had always been left dangling. You are complaining, he said softly. You have been complaining all your life because you do not assume responsibility for your decisions. If you would have assumed responsibility for your father's idea of swimming at 6 a.m, you would have swum by yourself if necessary. Or you would have told him to go to hell the first time he opened his mouth after you knew his devices. But you did not say anything, therefore you are as weak as your father. To assume responsibility for one's decisions means that one must be ready to die for them. Wait, I said, you're twisting this around. He didn't let me finish. It doesn't matter what the decision is, he said. Nothing could be more or less serious than anything else. Don't you see, in a world where death is the hunter, there are no small or big decisions. There are only decisions that we make in the face of our inevitable death. I couldn't say anything. Perhaps an hour went by. Why'd you tell me all this, Don Juan? I asked. Why are you doing this to me? You came to me, he said. No, that was not the case. You were not brought to me. I have had a gesture with you. I beg your pardon? You could have had a gesture with your father by swimming for him, but you didn't. Perhaps you were too young. I have lived longer than you. I have nothing pending. There is no hurry in my life. Therefore I can properly have a gesture with you. We went for a hike. I easily kept his pace and marvelled at his stupendous physical prowess. After a couple of hours we came to a hill. He signalled me to sit by him, and announced in a mock dramatic manner he was going to tell me a story. He said that once upon a time there was a young man, a destitute Indian, who lived among the white men in the city. He had no home, no relatives, and no friends. He had come into the city to seek his fortune, and found only misery and pain. From time to time he made a few cents working like a mule, barely enough for a morsel, otherwise he had to beg or steal for food. Don Juan said that one day the young man went to the marketplace. He walked up and down in a haze, his eyes wild upon seeing all the good things that were gathered there. He ended up tripping over some baskets and falling on top of an old man. The old man was carrying 4 enormous gourds and had just sat down to rest and to eat. Don Juan smiled knowingly and said that the old man found it quite strange that the young man had stumbled on him. He was not angry, but amazed why this particular young man had fallen on top of him. The young man, on the other hand, was angry and told him to get out of his way. He was not concerned at all about the ultimate reason for their meeting. He had not noticed that their paths had crossed. He helped the old man up and insisted on carrying the heavy goods. The old man took the road to the mountains, and as they went, gave the young man part of the food he had bought. The young man ate to his heart's content, and when he was quite satisfied, he began to notice how heavy the goods were. Don Juan opened his eyes and smiled with a devilish grin, and said that the young man asked, What do you carry in these goods? The old man did not answer, but told him he was going to show him a companion or friend who could alleviate his sorrows and give him advice and wisdom about the ways of the world. Don Juan made a dramatic gesture and said that the old man summoned the most beautiful deer the young man had ever seen. The deer was so tame that it came to him and walked about him. It glittered and shone. The young man was spellbound and knew right away that it was a spirit deer. The old man told him that if he wished to have that friend and its wisdom, all he had to do was to let go of the goods. What do you have in these goods? Said the young man. The old man serenely replied, food and water. Don Juan said the young man had not believed a word. He calculated that if the old man, who was obviously a wizard, was willing to give him a spirit deer for his goods, then the goods must have been filled with power beyond belief. Don Juan contorted his face again with a devilish grin and said the young man declared he wanted to have the goods. There was a long pause that seemed to mark the end of the story. What happened to the young man? I asked. He took the goods, he replied with a smile of satisfaction. There was another long pause. I laughed. I thought this had been a real Indian story. Don Juan's eyes were shining as he smiled at me. There was an air of innocence about him. He began to laugh in soft spurts and asked me, Don't you want to know about the goods? Of course I want to know. I thought that was the end of the story. Oh no, he said with a mischievous grin. The young man took the goods, ran away to an isolated place and opened them. What did he find? There was only food and water inside, and the young man, in a fit of rage, smashed them against the rocks. I said his reaction was only natural. Anyone in his position would have done the same. Don Juan's reply was that the young man was a fool who did not know what he was looking for. He did not know what power was, so he could not tell whether or not he'd found it. He had not taken responsibility for his decision, therefore he was angered by his blunder. He expected to gain something and got nothing. Don Juan speculated that if I were the young man, and if I had followed up my inclinations, I would have ended up angry, and would no doubt have spent the rest of my life feeling sorry for myself for what I'd lost. Then he explained the behavior of the old man. He had cleverly fed the young man so as to give him the daring of a satisfied stomach. Thus the young man, upon finding only food and goods, smashed them in a fit of anger. Had he been aware of his decision and assumed responsibility for it, Don Juan said, he would have taken the food and been more than satisfied with it, and perhaps he might have realized that that food was power too.